When someone with an avoidant attachment style begins to fall in love, something deep and hidden inside them starts to stir. From the outside, they might look calm, still smiling, still laughing, still acting like everything is normal. But inside, a storm is brewing. Love doesn't gently knock on their door. It crashes through like a wave, unexpected, overwhelming, and impossible to ignore. It wakes something up in them that's been buried for a long time, something tender and true. And with that awakening comes fear, avoidance. They're not scared of love because they don't want it. That's the great misunderstanding. They do want it. Sometimes more than they can even admit to themselves. They crave connection, warmth, and closeness. They want someone who sees them, understands them, accepts them, someone who stays. But their nervous system, their entire emotional world has been built to protect them from exactly that kind of closeness. Because to them, closeness doesn't just mean love. It means risk, exposure, vulnerability, and vulnerability in their experience has never felt safe. It's felt dangerous, like handing someone a fragile part of themselves and waiting for it to be dropped. For many avoidants, this fear goes way back. Maybe it started in childhood with a parent who was unemotionally present or a caregiver who was unpredictable. Maybe they opened up once and were met with silence or rejection. Whatever the story, it shaped the belief that emotional intimacy comes with pain. So when love begins to bloom, real love, not the casual, surface-level kind, they don't lean in. They flinch. Suddenly the walls they've spent years building don't feel high enough. This new person, the one they're starting to care about, sees them in a way no one else has. They feel noticed, understood, known. And instead of comfort, it brings panic. They begin to question everything. Is this even real? What if it's one-sided? What if they leave like everyone else? These aren't just passing thoughts. They're emotional alarms warning them that love can mean pain all over again. So they pull away. They might downplay their feelings, get distant, distract themselves with work or hobbies. They might seem cold or uninterested, but it's not because they don't care. It's because they care more than they know how to handle. Their heart notices the way this person laughs with them, the quiet peace they feel in their presence, the ease of being seen without having to explain. And it terrifies them. This isn't someone who brings drama or chaos. It's someone who brings calm. And strangely, that calm feels even more threatening because if it's real, if it's safe, then letting it in means letting go of all the old defenses. That's not easy. That's not quick. It's a war between fear and hope. They start to feel torn not because they're unsure about you, but because they're unsure if they can survive being known and still be loved. That's where people often get confused. The avoiding doesn't disappear because they've lost interest. They disappear because they feel too much, and feeling too much has never been safe. They're afraid of getting lost in someone else, of losing control, of being rejected once they show the parts of themselves they've always hidden. But they're also afraid of losing something that feels different, something that feels like it could be real. So they test you, not out of cruelty or manipulation, but out of fear. When they pull back, they're silently asking, will you stay? Will you still want me if I'm not easy to love? Will you run if I show you the messy parts? They don't need grand gestures or declarations. They need consistency, presence, calm, someone who can stay steady even when they get shaky. Because when they see that, something in them starts to shift. Maybe this love is different. Maybe love doesn't always mean hurt. Maybe being seen doesn't have to mean being left. And slowly something begins to change. They start to show up in little ways. They send the text they were scared to send. They share a thought instead of swallowing it. They stay just a little longer than they normally would. It's not perfect, it's not fast, but it's real. They begin to trust, bit by bit. The mask they've worn, the one that says, I don't need anyone, it starts to crack. Not because they've stopped being independent, but because they've started to believe they might be lovable too. They begin to recognize the difference between space and isolation, between control and connection, between walls and boundaries. It doesn't mean they stop pulling away overnight. There may still be moments where fear gets loud again, where they retreat into old patterns. But each time they choose to return to try again, they're rewriting the story they've lived in for so long. They begin to learn that love can be gentle. It doesn't have to be earned through perfection or withheld as punishment. Real love holds space. It doesn't corner, it invites, it doesn't demand. And when they feel that, when they believe that, love stops being the enemy. It becomes the very thing that starts to heal them, not with fireworks, but in the quiet, Steady beat of someone who sees them, stays and says without words, you don't have to run anymore. And maybe for the first time in their life, they don't.